Depends on how you travel. Is it just a night thing? It's going to get cold. It's easy. Are you going to be here for like 2 months? You got to do a lot more stuff. Yeah. It happens. We had what we would call the poopsicle.
You know, the most important thing, and I have frozen up before because I forgot this, and if your wife colors her hair, which my wife does, she'll kill me for saying that.
And that's why RVing in the winter is so much more of a pain in the butt, because you really do have to think about all these things throughout the day. Man, you need to get a coat on. Maybe some socks at least. Guys, what's going on? Welcome back to Why Wait. I'm Chris, and today I'm here with my buddy Cody from Untethered.
Hey guys.
So we are talking about cold weather RVing. Basically, today we're going to talk about wintering and things you have to do with your water systems. We're going to try to keep it to that. We have another video where we really get more into depth, like inside the camper and using Reflectix and all these other tips and tricks. And I'll put a link down to that so we can go check that out later if you guys want to go check it out. But today we're going to try to keep it some outside tips.
So we are here in North Georgia, and this is a timely video because it's been cold all week. And I know this is stuff that I've had to put into practice every single day since I've been here.
That's right, man. It's been like, I'd say, it's been below freezing every night here. We're up in the mountains in Georgia, and this week alone it's been dropping down in the teens and 20s almost every night. So it's kind of a pain in the butt for us. And throughout this video, we'll kind of talk about whether, you know, what you need to do if you're just going to be like one night camping in the cold, maybe a week, or if you're going to be more stationary long term. And if you are kind of stationary long term, you probably already know what to do. But for those of you who don't know, you'll kind of want to watch that and kind of like, you know, pick up on some things to do.
A lot of people might just say, just go south.
That's the joke.
Why did we
These
do that?
things have wheels for a reason, right? I mean, I'll tell you right now, like wintering in these RVs, like it just sucks. It makes everything so much harder. And I think the hardest thing is managing the water.
Absolutely. Yeah, managing the water is one thing. I know what we do on our side, and I know you do too, because you've done some videos on it, is we run off our fresh water tank. That's the easiest thing to do. It's great to exercise the pump so they don't get stale on you, and the seals don't go bad, and they don't lock up when you're not using them. Exactly. So it's a good thing to do anyway, and it's a way to not worry about freezing up at the spigot.
Yeah, that's what most people do. If you can, fill up your fresh water tank, like you said, just run off the water pump, put everything else away. Now, unfortunately, some of the downside to that is you may not be able to use your water filtration systems and your water softeners that you have set outside.
That's true.
But what do you do to counteract that?
What I do on mine, I have a reflection, so I have a little bit different layout, but I don't have this wall here.
Yeah, this is a pain in the butt.
So I have open access to all of this. So like Chris, I use the Blu Tech water filtration system. Can't recommend that enough. You really can't get better tasting water. So since I don't have this wall, I set my Blu Tech and my water softener, and I put all my hoses inside, and I only have one hose coming out the bottom. So at night when it's about to get cold, I go switch over to the dry camp mode and run off my tank. I disconnect this hose from the camper, disconnect the one from the spigot, and I'll usually just try to lay it downhill so it drains out. You don't have to worry about an issue in the morning.
Now, if you fill up your freshwater tank, do you try to fill it up with the water softener and filtration system hooked up first, so you're getting filtered, filtered water into the freshwater tank?
Filtered and softened water.
Okay. Sometimes we do that, and we have, sometimes we don't, because inside of our rig, we actually have the Blu Technology Solo unit underneath our kitchen sink. So if we have just regular, you know, unfiltered water in the freshwater tank, anything coming in from the freshwater tank to the kitchen sink is still going to go through a 0.2 micron filter. So we're still going to have filtered water at least to our kitchen sink.
And with using your water tank, the only thing to think about is making sure you're on a good sanitization process. I know you've done a couple of good videos on how to sanitize your fresh tank, so we won't get into that here. But it's a good time. Sorry.
No, I was just going to say, touching base on that, Blu Technology actually has an awesome product, so you're not using bleach, so you don't have to use a bleach mixture, which I used to use. They have sanitizing packets, which you don't have to soak overnight like the bleach and all that kind of stuff. You can actually just run it right through your system. It sanitizes everything on contact. You flush your water for like 15 or 20 minutes, and when it's done, everything's sanitized. You don't have to soak it. It's completely safe. It'll sanitize your hoses. It'll do your water softener. It's safe for the water heater, so you don't have to bypass the water heater. It's a really cool product.
How did I not hear about this?
I don't know. Yeah. It's something new, and I'll have to show you the packets because it's really cool.
Yeah, you have to send me a link on that.
You know, the pricing, the only complaint some people have is the pricing. You know, I think it's like $20 a packet. You may have to use 2 packets to do a big system like this. But again, it's safe. You're not worrying about mismeasuring the bleach. You're not soaking it overnight for us full-time RVers. You're not trying to figure out how to soak it in your hose, and then you don't have that residual maybe bleach taste.
Yeah, or that kind of greasy feeling in the water.
And the bleach, by the way, we all know it's not the best thing for plastic and PEX and rubber, seals and things like that anyway. So we'll have links to that down below. You guys can go check out all the Blu Technology products. You guys can go to his channel too. He has links for that as well if you guys are over there. So we both can't speak highly enough about that kind of stuff.
But you forgot the most important part about not using bleach in the water tank.
What's that?
If your wife colors her hair, which my wife does, she'll kill me for saying that. You don't want to turn the wife's hair green because there's few things that can go wrong on a camping trip that'll ruin your day more than
blonde hair becomes green, right?
Something like that.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. So another thing that Cody, again, his and a lot of other RVs are set up to where you can actually run your filtration system in your basement and still have access to it. We can't do that. I would have to do a modification where I would basically have to drill 2 holes into this wall so that I could have the water run through, go through all my filtration system on this side of the basement, and then come back through in here. And that's a modification I was going to make. I was actually going to do it this year, but now that we're selling the rig, I'm not going to get around to doing it. So for us, it's kind of a bummer because people do ask about, hey, is that filtration system good for winter? What do you do in winter? What do you do in winter? Well, you can't leave them outside. It's going to freeze up. And what else freezes up out here that a lot of people don't think about is the pressure regulators that you have.
Yeah, anything that goes onto the spigot will freeze. It'll hold just enough water to freeze. And I know at this campground, they've got a nice sign out front that says if you forget to unhook your stuff and it freezes, you're responsible for it. So
you're paying for it. Yeah. Let's say a little bit more long-term like we are. Well, when I'm gone for 2 weeks up in New York, the wife, Megan, she doesn't like coming out here and constantly filling the freshwater tank and checking the water levels and the pumps and stuff like that. So there's been times where we've actually run a heated water hose.
Okay.
Now, I will say a lot of the heated water hoses are not the highest quality. Not so much that it doesn't heat, but they're really known for leaking. And I even had a leaky one. So what I did was I built my own one time. And again, I'll have a link to that video where you basically can go to Home Depot, you can get the heated cord, get a high quality hose, because that's the key. Most of the heated water hoses have really bad hoses and the fittings are really bad, and that's where the leaks come from. So you can make your own. You can run that heated cord along it. You get some of that pipe insulation, some of that tape, heat tape, wrap it up. And we used to just travel with that. And anytime, we wanted to just say hooked up to city water, we would use the heated water hose. But your hose is only as good as your water spigot. Yeah. Right?
That's true.
Yeah. So you're going to have to do some modifications to that. And as you guys can see right here on this campground, we have, we've done some modifications here. In fact, there's a heated line running up on this water spigot. We can plug it in at night. It's obviously wrapped up with insulation and things like that. So you have to think about that too. The spigot itself has to be like really prepped and insulated. So,
and even on the subject of going south, the last 2 seasons, we've been in campgrounds that have had water issues. And year before last, it was Austin, Texas, in an ice storm where the spigots just froze up.
We were down in Texas, I think, for that same ice storm. Yeah.
And luckily, we had water in the tanks. We were prepped up for it. And last year in Fort Worth, so this winter we're going to Florida. I guess Texas doesn't work for.
Yeah, we were down in that big storm of Texas, and we had the same thing. All the power went out. All the sewer stations started backing up. Everything was flowing up out of the sewers. Which, talking about sewers, what's a good tip for the sewer hose? Because that's something a lot of people totally forget to think about.
Yeah, I think the best thing for me at night before I go to bed, after I've let things drain throughout the day or whatever, I'll go ahead and shut my black or gray tank valve, both of them in here.
Yep.
And I'll leave the Valterra valve open. But you do want to make sure you walk that sewer hose down.
Lift it up.
Because you don't want to have that much water in the volume of a 15-foot hose. Yeah. In 10-degree weather.
It doesn't take much for it to expand. Even if you just have some water sitting in the bottom of that sewer hose, and these things are just cheap plastic.
Yeah.
It expands. They're going to crack really easy. So a lot of people don't think about that. You can unhook the sewer hose each night if you wanted to, or just kind of put it away while you're running on the fresh water tank until you're ready to, maybe empty in 3 or 4 days or whatever it is. So that's another option. It just depends on when you keep getting it out, putting it in, and getting it out.
We've done it both ways. And sometimes it just gets cold for a few hours during the night, and the sun comes out and it warms up. But if it's travel day tomorrow morning and you got to go, the last thing you want to do is be the guy that's out here with a heat gun or a blow dryer. I think you had a story.
It happens. We had what we would call the poopsicle. And we've actually kind of had it happen twice. That huge winter storm in Texas, we had tons of stuff in the hose still. It froze up, and it was just a nightmare. We had to go buy a whole new hose. But something that we didn't realize happened was, and this only happened to us once, we had so much steam coming up from the sewer that the condensation and maybe even some warm air coming down from the camper, from the heated tanks, I don't know. The condensation and everything actually froze up in that hose, and it froze up enough to where it closed it down to about that big of an opening. So when Megan went to go open the tanks, boom, it stopped. Nothing was flowing.
Oh.
The hose was stuck with ice and liquids, and you can't do anything about it because you can't disconnect your hose at this point.
It's stuck on there.
You're trying to blow it down. It's a pain in the butt. So don't forget to think about your sewer hoses as well.
Dry it out. Just walk them out or unhook them.
Yeah. And that's why RVing in the winter is so much more of a pain in the butt, because you really do have to think about all these things throughout the day before you go to bed. Are the tanks closed? Tank heaters? Are the tank heaters on?
Yeah.
Don't forget to use tank heaters if you have them. Walking the sewer hose out. So again, it depends on how you travel. Is it just a night thing? It's going to get cold. It's easy. Are you going to be here for like 2 months? You got to do a lot more stuff.
Yeah. And then there's always, there's a subject of skirting. If you're really doing a long-term thing, there's a lot of different things you can do. But, the most important thing, and I have frozen up before because I forgot this and didn't check my propane.
Yeah.
And we've been on the road since 2022 and just completely forgot to check my propane. Woke up the next morning, water's not coming on, tank heaters are on, everything's good. But, your water lines are about this big and they run through the underbelly of the trailer. It's great to have a heated underbelly, but the furnace has to run.
Yes. So
you want to make sure your propane's topped off. And the other thing is, if you have a little electric fireplace like I do and like Chris does, you want to make sure that's turned down below your furnace temp. So if you have your furnace set on 70, you want that fireplace set on 64 or 66. That way it helps keep the rig warm, but you still want that furnace to cycle, so you make sure you're forcing hot air into the underbelly to keep those water lines nice and loose.
Yeah, I've seen that on the Facebook things before. People, we just run space heaters and this and that, and they totally forget that that's great for inside, but you got to keep that underbelly heated if it has the option for it anyways, to keep all that piping nice and warm so that doesn't freeze up as well. Yep. And you mentioned running out of propane. Sounds like you need to get some Mopika propane sensors. I don't know. Have you ever seen those or tried those?
I've seen them on your channel.
Okay.
I don't have them. I have kind of the goofy dials that mount on the propane tank.
Yeah, which like every propane tank,
so
are kind of like...
Well, it's full till it's not.
Exactly.
It's either full or empty.
If you guys haven't seen it, my wife really loves them. And this is because she loves them because I'm always away in New York when we seem to get the coldest weather. So she always has to deal with this on her own. The Mopika propane sensor goes under your tank. It basically emits like a sonar reading through the tank. It goes to an app in your phone. You can set parameters. It'll notify you, hey, 20%, 15%, you're at 30%. So you get a notification like, ooh, man, it's 4 o'clock in the afternoon. I need to go fill this up before we go to bed. We're almost empty. So
or switch tanks. Or
you can pull it up. Exactly. So most people I've talked to have really liked them. There's a few people who have said they haven't had the greatest success with them, and they work on any kind of tank, 20 pound, 30 pound. They even work on the big tanks or the long like Class A sideways tanks. So they're pretty compatible. I find them to be pretty accurate. I will say I've changed the battery in them maybe once a year, depending on how cold it is. And I'll also just, full disclosure, I have had one completely crap out to where I had to buy a new one. And just stop working. But yeah, they're not too expensive. Maybe $60.
Now, is it working on this big 100-gallon?
It is not. Yeah. So right now we have a giant 130-gallon tank over here. So we don't have to even worry about checking our tanks. So that's nice while we're stationary right here. So
I need you to weigh in on something for me.
Okay.
Because it's kind of and you guys can let us know in the comments because it's always kind of a back and forth. You're here. Do you have, forget that big tank. If you got your 30-pound, 40-pound tanks hooked up, you leave them both open?
Oh, no.
Or do you open them? Okay, good.
So
good man right here.
Yeah, in fact, I think some of my most recent videos have been on this subject. And we were kind of talking about this. I learned this actually from the NRVTA home course. Todd Henson kind of runs that. You can go down to Texas, take the whole class, or you can get the home course, which is great for any beginning RVer.
Sure.
And one of the tips I learned was there's that little switch, that switch valve from tank to tank. And again, you can go watch the video, but I always thought that if it was pointing to one tank, that's the only tank it could pull off of. I didn't realize when that tank runs out, if your other tank is open, it'll start running off the other tank if it's open. I thought you actually had to physically switch. I thought I knew if it was in the middle, it would take both tanks. But yeah, so that was a little something I learned. And I in that video, I said, hey, maybe I'm an idiot. Maybe I'm the only one who didn't know that because I didn't know. I had a lot of people chime in and said they didn't know that. They thought the same thing. They thought if it was pointed to that tank, that's the only tank it can run off until you physically switch it. But that's why it's an auto switch over in it.
Yeah, I found that out the hard way back in my travel trailer days.
Okay.
So now I open one tank, and when it runs out, usually right in the middle of a shower.
Yeah.
That's usually how it works out. And then you go open the other one, then you know you got to get gas.
Good practice. Always keep one tank closed. That way you always have one tank you can switch to, then go fill the other one up for sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And the only other tip I can think of is if you're actually moving your rig on a cold day, make sure you check your tires. I say it on my channel all the time, every trip. It's tires, lights, and a tug test before you pull out of the campground. But especially as the weather's changing, either getting hotter or colder, because when the temperatures drop, you're going to have to add air to your tires. And if you drive to a warmer area, you're probably going to have to let some air out of the tires before you leave the next spot.
I think a lot of people don't think about that or check them.
It's tough. You know, if you have a good TPMS system, you can check them that way or check them the old school way. But, you know, this is the time of year I hate the tire part of it, because it seems like every trip
so
we move so much. I'm letting air out or putting air in on every trip.
I always turn my tire pressure monitor system on like first thing in the morning, get it going, you know, so I can start finding the sensors while I'm getting everything else ready in the rig, and it starts beeping and let me know each one. Okay, they're all low, and then I'll go through and I
did that this morning since I'm leaving tomorrow, so I apologize in advance for you having to
I
air compressor.
I didn't hear it. So
since we're right next door.
And if there's anything that like we missed, I feel like we covered a lot. But if you guys have any like tips or tricks on like, you know, just anything RV in the winter, it doesn't have to necessarily be water, please comment down below, because I'm always open for new suggestions and things I'm not thinking about too. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. And if you guys don't know, again, Untethered, go over there, check out their channel. We'll have a link down below. You can tell them about your channel a little bit, you know, better than I could.
You know, we're basically a day-to-day RV blog. I work remote on the road, and my wife runs the YouTube channel and takes care of that kind of stuff for us. So we travel, we move a lot. We move about every 7 days on average, and we cover a lot of miles. We just upgraded trucks.
Opposite of us.
So we have a lot going on our channel. It's just kind of a mess all the time, but we do have a lot of fun doing it. And we had a lot of fun hanging out with you guys yesterday. We were actually cutting some of that video together this morning. So make sure you check out both channels so you can see it from different points of view.
Definitely. Guys, as always, appreciate you stopping by and checking it out. And as always, we will catch you guys next week.
See you guys on the highway.
All right.